What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Walkout Network. You are watching another edition of Unleashed. I'm your host, Ant Walker, here once again with a great panel. And today, let's go ahead and introduce our special guest. That special guest, you've seen him on this channel before. And as everyone knows, a good friend of mine, Oscar Willis, the content manager of the Mac Life. Oscar, how you doing, my man?
I'm good. Thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it.
It's about time you accepted one of my invitations. So
I'm never at home, am I? So come on, it's not my fault.
That or you're never home or you've been big timing me. I don't know, but either way, we got a celebrity appearance today. Thank you, sir. All right, so now also, of course, one of the anchors of the panel, the man known as the jack of all trades, who's mastered them all, the senior editor of Sherdog.com, Mr. Ben Duffy. Ben, what's up, brother?
I'm doing splendidly, sir. It was a not very interesting card we had this past weekend, but I'm excited to do more than justice by the UFC's most recent offering.
Yeah, I just woke up from the weekend of fights, so
so somebody got knocked out. Good.
All right, and of course, the man who gives the panel all the wonderful statistics, all the numbers, who does all the math and knows all the random facts. He is the statistician. He is Jay Petrie, also of Sherdog.com. Jay, what's up?
Hey guys, I'm looking forward to talking about all these wonderful and exciting fights that happened this weekend. But there was a real good stat to work with for this week. So the stat of the week, 15. That is the number of stoppages for Charles Oliveira in the UFC. He's finished 15 fighters along the way. The only fighter that has more is Donald Cerrone. So he passes Vitor Belfort, Anderson Silva, name. So this was a big week for Oliveira.
Very, very big week. So, of course, that was probably the biggest highlight from the UFC's event in Sao Paulo. But we'll get to that. First, the big news that broke today was the announcement that Ben Askren, the former Bellator and one championship welterweight champion, a top contender in the welterweight division in the UFC, has now officially retired. He made his announcement on Ariel Helwani's show earlier today. So just some quick thoughts, gentlemen. What are we going to remember Ben Askren for? What's his legacy now that we've seen him in these multiple promotions with so much fanfare attached?
Yeah, for me, I think with Ben, when he came into the UFC, no one really knew what to expect, right? He was this guy from outside. His record had some names on it, but how good were those names at the time he fought them? And for me, when Ben came in with the welterweight division in the way it was kind of a bit sort of stagnant. He was just such a breath of fresh air. At this point in mixed martial arts, if you're a talker, you are easily comparable to someone like Conor or like Chael. And, there's very specific characters that arrive in this sport. Ben was not one of those. He was actually unique. And to get a unique person who's interesting, can talk, and is funny, it felt fresh. And for me, that's the thing I remember him about. Just he came in, he was regarded as this incredibly boring fighter that Dana famously said he'd rather watch than take Ambien. And in fact, he actually had one of the most exciting. Robbie Lawler fight was crazy. The Maslow fight was insane. And then the Maia fight was a great fight too. So for this guy who came in with this sort of, well, is he good? Is he boring? I think he can look back at his tenure in the UFC with some pride. I mean, because, okay, he didn't achieve the competitive goals he wanted to, but certainly as a character, as a person people were interested in, he's probably one of the biggest names this year.
All right. Ben, so I'm going to ask you this question right here. Now, would you consider his run in the UFC a success?
No. From a competitive standpoint, obviously not. He will leave the UFC without really a clean, uncontroversial win, and his two losses were both very, very humiliating losses. I mean, competitively, he was a wash. Hopefully, he got a couple good paychecks out of that, and I believe he did make a splash. I'm kind of with Oscar here. I always liked Ben Askren's personality. He was a different brand of trash talker. There wasn't much malice in it. He was just kind of like witty, and a lot of people found him, just kind of annoying. But I loved it, and it's probably because it's a little bit what my own personality is like. Like I'm an annoying person, so he was my guy. He had my heart. It's a shame, but I'm glad that we got to see. When he retired out of one, I said at the time, I don't think this is going to stick. I think he wants the chance to prove something to himself against the best in the world. He got that chance. I believe him now. But the funny thing is, I mean, he fought some good guys before they were really who they were. Like, if somebody like completely dusted Lyman Good and Douglas Lima this year, you'd be like, that guy's a top 10, if not a top 5 welterweight. He just caught him at the wrong time, you know, in their careers. But yeah, I mean, farewell, Ben Askren, if this is really the end. And I'm sure he has plenty of things ahead of him. I mean, he has a wrestling academy that he has kept working this whole time and has plenty of other avenues. Smart guy.
Yeah, it's been very vocal about some investments and financial planning and whatnot. So I don't think he's going to be the guy who comes out of retirement just looking for that quick payday because he really needs it. But I guess we'll leave it with this thought. And this one's for you, Jay. Where would you rank Ben Askren on your all-time list of trash talkers?
Ooh, that was a swerve. I was expecting just the all-time list of welterweight. Trash talkers? Yeah, I mean, the two before me put it well, is that his trash talk was, I guess it was more genuine than the rest because he knew it was just entertaining and it wasn't over-reliant on a pro wrestling stick or being incendiary for the sake of being incendiary. It was, I'm going to mess with these guys because I have some witty, clever things to say. So in that regard, I'd give him some props. And this is going to sound really kind of disparaging, I suppose, but that's the best way we can remember him because he's in the pantheon of what could have been fighters. He's in that same line. I mean, we talk about all the time, Uriah Hall and Michael Johnson, of those fighters that at any given time they could be the best thing in the world, and you wonder what could have been if things had gone right. I mean, I think on a personal level to his career, the first Bellator card I ever watched all the way through was Bellator 40. It was back in 2011. He fought Nick Thompson on MTV2 back in the day. And that was a hard fight to sit through. That was all respect to Ben Askren. That was Ambien Ben Askren days. That was less pound and more ground. And I had seen more cards before.
My girlfriend says.
Yeah, I had seen some Bellators in the past. Razor Rob going over to Bellator, Eddie Alvarez doing his thing, but that was the first one that really kind of sticks with me. Is Ben Askren headlining that card? He's not a great all-time great. He's not a legend. He's not getting a retrospective piece. His UFC career was, it had its moments, but the weirdest thing about it, he was in the UFC for 8 months. 8 months. 8 months. That's all we had of Ben Askren. And he made it worth it. He made it worth his time. He got us talking. And he did have some good trash talk. So in terms of the original question, trash talker, he's a good top 10 trash talker, I'd say.
Oh man, that's a very eventful 8 months. So
8 months.
Yeah, wow. I mean, I can't really say I'm surprised by this retirement announcement. I know we speculated on this after the Maia fight, a guy who was already retired and then got the opportunity to go into the UFC when things weren't going as well as he probably would have liked. Makes sense for him to, call it a career considering he already did that before. So, all right. So now let's move on to the actual events over the weekend. Try to stay awake, gentlemen. Swing or miss. Jan Blachowicz versus Jacare Souza. Was this the worst main event in the ESPN era? I'll start with you, Oscar.
Yeah, I think the only one that comes to mind other than that is Francis Ngannou versus Cain Velasquez was very disappointing, but it wasn't boring. So I would pick this one over that one, but that's the only other contender I can think about.
So Jay, tell me which swing or miss on this one. Is this the most boring ever?
In the ESPN era, I can qualify it with that in the since January, whatever, 2019. Since then, I can say, yeah. The only other one that comes to mind, I mean, the Ngannou Cain thing was kind of a drag. Durant and me, Ladd was kind of a drag because of the quickness and the uncertainty. Yeah. But Shevchenko Carmouche. But here's the difference. Here's my difference is that we kind of expected that Shevchenko would stuff the takedowns or be forced to stuff takedowns for 5 rounds. Carmouche is a phenomenal wrestler. Her striking isn't as anything that needs to be talked about. Here's a stat. She landed 18 strikes against Carmouche, and Jacare landed 20. So she actually understruck him. There you go. But here's the thing. We had the and also, hold on. Also, Shevchenko was a minus 1,100 favorite. She was over a 10-1 favorite. And so people were like, well, yeah, she's going to walk through her. So we had the expectations of that. Blachowicz, Jacare was going to be a banger. We thought it was going to be something was going to happen. It was dramatic. Blachowicz just destroyed Luke Rockhold with that left hand it knocked him into another sport. But Jacare is he's almost always an action fighter. So, how could we go wrong? So to me, that's the biggest difference, is that we had the makings of something potentially great, and it didn't deliver at all. And I think that's the difference of why this main event hurt more.
Ben, so answer this one for me. How much does the letdown of what we thought the fight was going to be play into how unexciting it was actually to watch in real time?
Maybe I'm in the minority here, but I didn't expect the fight to be fire. I didn't expect it to be that bad, because this certainly is at least on the short list of worst main events of the ESPN era. I would personally, just due to what I personally hate and find annoying, would put ones like Derandami versus Ladd, Rodriguez versus Stevens, and Ngannou versus Velasquez before, just because those are fights where it was over in a blink. It was over at least partly due to something freakish, and we didn't really learn anything. Here, indeed. I mean, we at least learned something about both fighters and where they go next. So I wasn't expecting it to sizzle, but I wasn't expecting it to be that bad either.
Yeah, I found myself really struggling to kind of get through this card. Like I really just stopped scoring it after like the second round. I could not devote the mental energy to score it. It was like I gave up. It got to a point by the end of this, and I know I tweeted this, and I saw a whole lot of other people echoing the sentiment. Like I didn't care enough to give a final score. Kind of didn't even care who won. It's like, all right, it happened. It's over. All right, let me watch something on Netflix now.
To me, extended sequences of cage mashing are the hardest thing for me to score. If there's a round where, yes, absolutely. Like, who's winning? No, we're all losing this round, So that makes it even harder.
So, which seemed like the craziest scene to you? Would it be I guess the craziest scene of fans revolting because of their level of boredom? Would that take Woodley and Maya waving the cell phones, or the cell phone waving from Blachowicz and Jacare?
For me, I prefer the most recent cell phone raising, because Bisping told his fellow commentator to get under the table and do that. So that, to me, made that one just shine a little bit brighter than the other, perhaps.
Yeah, I think too, like the lights were dimmer in the Brazilian arena, so it looked crazy. I was in the Honda Center for the cell phone waving of UFC 214, and I mean, sitting from the stands, I mean, in press row, it didn't really look that bad, I guess, but on TV it played out, but it wasn't nearly as dark in the Honda Center as it was in Brazil. So yeah, wow, that I just can't get with that fight. All right, let's move on before we all get a little drowsy here. So the co-main event, actually no, it wasn't the co-main event. Was it the co-main event?
Yeah, it was actually.
It was co-main. Okay, yeah. Shogun versus Paul Craig. Do you think they should run that back, and how did you score it? Jay, I'll start with you.
I'll answer the first one very briefly. 29-28 Shogun. Craig won the first round, but it wasn't a 10-8. And should they run it back? No. I've been seeing the conversation, the narrative driving. I think we even had an article about it on Sherdog, about Shogun accepts potential rematch and they'll run it back and do it again. Not every fight needs an immediate rematch or a rematch ever. I mean, yeah, you can think of unnecessary rematches that happen. You go, well, that's weird. Charles Oliveira and Nick Lentz, that's weird. Why are they doing that again? Those kind of thing. To see Shogun Craig again, why? There's, like Duffy leans on many a time, and it's a kind of a takeaway for me. What did we learn from it? I didn't learn much from this. It was I'd say it was a far cry from that main event, but it wasn't special. You know, Shogun survived a blitz in the opening round, and he kind of almost got stopped, but not really, as many have done in the past. And it kind of slowed, and he outworked him as the opponent got tired, and it kind of went on, and he gets hurt, and he stands up, and he's defending the ground game. You know, it's formulaic at this point for 37, 38-year-old Shogun. No, Shogun has 1 or 2 fights left in him, according to him and what he was saying promising to his wife. I mean, Anderson Silva did that, and he came back for years. But still, if we take him at his word, 1 or 2 fights left. Let's get weird. Let's have fun. Let's not have a meaningless round 4.
Like Derek Lewis versus Alir Latifi weird?
Let's get weird like that. Let's go Glover. Let's go Johnny Walker. Let's go, okay, fine, screw it. Let's have fun. He's not going to get near a title.
Move up to 205 and have him fight Shogun.
Game on, man. That's the kind of thing that we need to see. He doesn't have enough for the title shot. He's can knock out the Tyson Pagers in the world and the Jean Volantes, but then what happens when he fights, anybody else? Anthony Smith's, Thiago Santos's, good luck, Chuck. I don't want to see him fight Alexander Gustafsson again. No.
Yeah, just hard pass on that. So, yeah. Oscar, are you excited for the Hua Craig 2? Is that tickling your fancy right there?
Well, they say if you want something to happen so much, it won't, and that's really how I feel this fight. I really have to hold my expectations in because I don't want to curse myself. No, I completely agree with Jay. I think I was really surprised when they did Anderson versus Jared Cannonier, because I feel like you have these guys, you have these names, they've only got a few fights in.
Right.
Like, why would you give them just like, I'll run? If anything, all you're doing is sending them into retirement with their name value and historical importance to the sport lowered. When Anderson Silva leaves, he will leave as like, he hurt his leg against Jared Cannonier. Why would you do that? There are so many. Even Anderson versus Till would have been better. I'm sort of getting sidetracked, but Shogun, I completely agree. Is like, why would you give him what is essentially, no disrespect to Paul Craig, but a meaningless fight in Glasgow just so you could give Paul the rub, who realistically has a ceiling on him as well. So, you got to pick and choose your moments to build stars. You have to think, right, we're taking the star from this veteran and giving it to this young guy. Got to make sure that young guy is going to use that correctly. If that's the matchmaking you want to do, I just don't think that's this occasion.
So Ryan Hall, BJ Penn wasn't the right call then.
Ryan, the finish made that the right call.
Yeah, Ryan Hall trained with some guys over at a local pub to get prepared for that BJ fight. So Ben, what's your take on this? We'll wrap it up with your thoughts on Hua and Craig.
Nothing to add. 29-28. Hua scored it the same as Jay did. I gave Craig the first round, but not a 10-8. And no, I don't need to see it again. If Hua has, however many fights he has left, I don't want him to waste one rerunning that. And even for Craig, if Craig has aspirations of becoming a top 10 light heavyweight for real, fighting Hua again doesn't do him that much good.
All right.
They should both go on to other things.
Agreed. I mean, if anything, this fight was more of a scoring nightmare as when you consider how 10-9 rounds are weighted against a 10-8 round. So that's the only real takeaway from this fight, if you ask me. But let's move on to what was one of the bright spots that we mentioned before. Charles Oliveira, he scored his second knockout in a row. He put Jared Gordon out with some very, very nice, well-timed, well-placed right-hand strikes. Has he now become a legit threat to the lightweight title? Ben, I'll start with you.
When I assumed some question like this was going to come up, and when it came up, my immediate thought was no. And I started laying out kind of all of my talking points as to why no. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that maybe I'm wrong. My picture of Charles de Bronx as one of the great, not just of this era, but one of the great all-time offensive glass cannons in MMA history, and an incredibly dangerous fighter who's just a head case and due to melt down at any time. It's literally 2 years old. He is undefeated since the beginning of 2018. He's beaten 6 good fighters. None of them were easy outs. And even against those 6, the Charles de Bronx of 5 years ago would have found some way to lose 2 or 3 of them and blow weight at least twice. He is not the same fighter he used to be. He is more confident as a striker. He always had. He wasn't one of those jiu-jitsu guys that just was clueless on the feet. He knew how to strike, but would just have weird lapses and get smashed. That's gone. He's become more buttoned up. He's become more of an airtight striker. The grappling game is the same as it's ever been. He is venomous. He is possibly the most dangerous offensive grappler the sport has ever seen. And it's weird because he's the one who just started out grappling in his garage with his friends and was not a decorated grappler before he came into MMA. He's kind of putting it together. He's beaten in this 6-fight winning streak. He's beaten 3 guys that were great MMA wrestlers, even if they no longer were at the time they fought him. I mean, talking about Lentz, Miller, and Guida. I still would want to know what happens when he comes up against a big, burly American wrestler with, some amount of savvy on the ground. Like, how does he look against a Kevin Lee? But I want to see it now.
Yeah.
I want to see it now. I am slowly coming around to being a believer in Charles de Bronx when I never thought that would happen. He's fixed things that most fighters never fix.
Yeah, for me, I think with him, I always wondered what his attitude was like to the sport. We saw him miss weight a bunch of times, even at featherweight, and he's always had that sort of thing around him. And then he'd always kept talking about going back to featherweight, and I sort of wondered, what's your attitude here? But at some point, you just have to look at the cold hard stats that are written before you. 6 wins, all very solid wins, all through finishes. I mean, the guy's got 28 wins, 2 by decision. I mean, the guy's a finishing machine, and I think maybe that attitude I was referring to earlier and the weight misses and stuff have sort of maybe sort of dirtied his name somewhat. But if someone else had this finishing rate, they would be up the rankings and people would be clamoring to see them fight. So I think the next fight is a very important fight for him. Get him against someone like Kevin Lee. He finishes him. Then we're talking top 5. Then he's up the top there,
So Kevin Lee, is that the preferred matchup that you guys are feeling?
Dan Hooker?
That was kind of one of the ones I was thinking, actually. That was along the lines. 'Cause, I mean, Hooker wants to fight in February in New Zealand. So 3 months away, he didn't take much damage against Gordon. That's definitely doable if he wants to keep going. We're going to go naysayer. I don't even have him as a top 10 lightweight now. He's won 6 fights. He's finished all the guys. But really, who's his best win in that streak? Is it Nick Lentz? Is it David Tamer? Like Clay Guida, big name. You can go, okay, well, fine. But it just doesn't, I don't want to say it doesn't have the pizzazz or anything. But he needs a ranked guy to show us where in the division he can actually match up, because historically he's the kind of fighter that will falter at that important fight, like a less successful Donald Cerrone, who will have that top 3 matchup and go, oh boy, but he fought Felder and he couldn't get Felder and he got elbowed to Bolivia, I believe is how they call it. In a division where 12 bloody wins doesn't get you an undisputed title shot. And a former popular champ can swoop in and get a title shot. If they want it, it's there. It's on the table. Oliveira is probably 4 wins away from a title shot at this time. Hooker's a good fight. Islam Makhachev is an interesting, hard, heavy grappler that's in the similar spot in the division. I think they're both on 6-fight win streaks. They both look great, but neither have that win. That win. Makhachev beat Davi Ramos, and that's a good win. It's a good win. It's a good one, but a Kevin Lee, Dan Hooker, Makhachev, a name that you go, okay, all right, let's do this thing. But there's one in particular, and I'm going to call out our editor, Brian Knapp, for mentioning Edson Barboza.
That's exactly the name I was thinking. Yeah.
I don't like that fight. It doesn't make sense to me. And it might make sense to you guys, and I'm okay with it because it is okay. Here, let me get there. It's violence, because Ultimate Glass Cannon versus pretty much Ultimate Glass Cannon. I mean, someone's going to fall down and it's going to hurt. But I'm a winners fight winners guy. Barbosa's lost 4 of his last 5, and he's looked really, really bad in some of those losses. And, Oliveira's won 6. Why don't we have Barbosa fight an Al Iaquinta type, also on a losing streak too. But my last thought is that Fight Matrix, who they have a points-based ranking system, had Gordon at the 103 ranked lightweight. So getting him a win in the top 50, top 25, top 15 is what I need to see before I'm on the train. But it could happen, and I'm okay with it.
So looking at the UFC rankings right now, they have Charles Oliveira ranked at number 13, and Islam Makhachev at 15, Alexander Hernandez at 14. I kind of think at this point Oliveira has been smashing everyone in front of him that has not been ranked, and I kind of think it would be a disservice to him to now fight down now that you've gotten to the top 15. So with that in mind, I say Edson Barboza makes a lot of sense. I like the Dan Hooker matchup as well. I wouldn't be mad at Al Iaquinta either. I think those are all pretty solid fights for him and names that can mean something for either gentleman.
Beneil Dariush just fought last month, and he's on a 3-fight win streak.
Where's he ranked?
I don't think
He's not.
Yeah, top 15.
Yeah. See, that's the issue. I think you have to give Oliveira a top 15 guy at this point. Like you really have to.
Give him Kevin Lee.
I'm down.
I'm not mad at that either. So
yeah.
I mean that's once again that's the cool thing about lightweight. You can just mix and match these guys up in any way, and we're all going to watch. We're all signing up for that.
And also, that would give him the rare experience, like for DeBronx, of not being the guy that most people are most nervous to see on the scale that weekend.
Well, hey, I do need to point something out. Every time, and it was a lot of times, that he missed weight, it was a featherweight. He's never missed weight as a lightweight. I don't know Joe Silva can't force him anymore. I don't know if Sean Shelby's letting him go back down. I think that they drew a line in the sand. It makes sense. Or Oscar's right, and he kind of got his act together and said, okay, let's get past this and move on.
You know what I want to see in the ultimate act of sportsmanship between Kevin Lee and Charles Oliveira? I want to see Charles Oliveira place his glasses on Kevin Lee's staph infection. That would just be just so much solidarity right there. Just fighters really just keeping it about the sport and togetherness. I just want to see that. And that I think would be a great step in moving forward in the positivity of the sport and the camaraderie between fighters. Fantastic stuff there. All right, so Oscar, I should defer to you on this one because you were one of the few media members in attendance for the last offering of bare knuckle fighting. The Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship. Yes, you just got back actually from the beautiful town of Biloxi, Mississippi, where they
Cultural center.
Yeah, where they love brothers like me in Biloxi, but that's another story. Tell me
about it.
All right, so you were there for the rematch between Jason Knight and Artem Lobov. What are some takeaways you have from that event, especially considering how little media attention this got?
Yeah, it's a shame really because we watch fights for a living, and I have to say that being ringside at a bare knuckle fight, it is like on another level. It's the noises of the fit, the skin, bare skin stuff. It's hard to watch. So knowing what these guys are doing to themselves, and knowing they need people to buy the pay-per-view to get paid, it's sad to see that this fight, especially after a rematch from such an amazing war the first time, didn't get quite as much attention as I thought it would. Maybe that's because it went up against the UFC. Maybe bare knuckle just didn't kind of get the engine behind it as much as they could. I don't know. Or maybe bare knuckle, I'm wondering, is sort of struggling to find its own audience. It's got its own audience itself, but it's not maybe taking as many from the UFC as it perhaps thought it would. And that's something they're going to have to work out going forward. As far as the event itself, I actually saw people who did watch it online were very positive in the feedback. The fights are very quick. Basically, every fight was a stoppage. And the pacing was very well done. Anthony's off. He got bored listening to me, and he's back. But yeah, and then so the event itself was very good. Obviously, I felt very bad for Artem losing the fight. I didn't think he boxed very well, and I thought Jason Knight did box very well, so it made the gap between them look even more stark. But today I saw Artem already calling on his fight against Jason Bedford in February in Florida. But I was reflecting on Artem. When Artem left the UFC in January, I think it had been quite easy to believe he would have just sort of gone and maybe got a spot in Bellator, or maybe would have just sort of disappeared and it'd just be remembered as this meme. And I sort of thought to myself, well, actually, he had a crazy fight, like fight of the year contender potentially against Jason Knight, beat Paulie Malignaggi in this crazy fight. And so even though he's just lost, I think actually his year for a guy who's just left the UFC, he's never really regarded as any good, he's developed a fandom that I think probably most people wouldn't have ever thought he could get. So I think Artem should be very happy with his 2019. I wouldn't mind seeing him take a bit of a break, because I think 3 bare knuckle fights in 11 months is not very good for you or something to say. But yeah, it's an interesting event to be at. They're always interesting places to go.
All right. So Oscar, I'll stick with you on this one. Do you want to see Artem return to bare knuckle, or would you like to see him go to boxing or kickboxing, back to MMA, or what do you see next for him?
Well, I know his contract is up with bare knuckle, and he's negotiating a 2-fight extension to that, which I assume would be Bedford, and then the third fight with Jason Knight. It's a tough one, man, because I being as transparent, I really like Artem. He's a really nice guy to deal with. He's very welcoming to me when I go there, obviously through the Mac Life connection and stuff. It's very hard to see him in there taking that sort of punishment. It's not easy to see these guys do that to themselves, but I know it gets him the most pay right now. I wouldn't mind seeing him try a professional boxing fight, but I do think if you look at his performance against Jason Knight and these big winging overhands, if you're fighting a professional boxer, that's not going to work out great for you. And if your concern is building your brand up to look good, being outclassed mercilessly by a boxer based on that last performance is not what you want to do. So I think bare knuckle might just be the best place for someone like Artem Lobov, someone who might not necessarily shine in the UFC or in professional boxing, but this is his promotion. He's the face of this, even if he did just lose. If not that, I really don't understand why Bellator haven't signed him. That to me is crazy. It seems like such an obvious fit. Have him fight in Dublin and you'd sell the place out. Crazy to me though, they haven't signed him.
Yeah, especially considering the push that they've been making in Europe, and they've really made a dedication to putting on events in Dublin in particular. Just seems like 1 + 1 = 2. All right, fellas. Now there was some talk after the fight, and I know I just stood up and tried to get this light to come back on in my office, but I turned off already. Whatever. So one thing that I found pretty interesting after the main event wrapped, and I don't know if this is something he said immediately after the fight or a backstage interview or something, but Jason Knight is apparently now trying to challenge Paulie Malignaggi in an actual boxing match. So
through Twitter, he tweeted at him, I think.
Yeah. Okay, that was Twitter. So fellas, like, what do you think of that? Is that something you'd sign up to see?
No, it isn't. It doesn't make sense in any regard. Just thinking about BKFC 9, it was exactly what I needed. Me personally needed because it was the tail end of the Sao Paulo card. And I was kind of feeling it was kind of a drag, and it was about 11:00 p.m. my time. And so I flipped on BKFC 9 and watched it all the way through. It was a Just Bleed card, plain and simple. It was violence delivered. Every fight was a finish, I should say every fight ended inside the distance except for one, if I remember correctly, and it was a barn burner of a heavyweight title fight. Yeah. Main event, Artem Lobov, Jason Knight feels like the bare knuckle version of Leonard Garcia, Korean Zombie. First fight was just a bloody war, violent, thrilling, a blast to see. And even though the decision at the end, you're like, I don't know, like I might have had Knight, you might have had Lobov, and people were all split on the card. The second fight was a lot more telling. It had a few brawl-like exchanges throughout the fight, but it was more that Knight was more measured. He had the timing, he had the range. He figured out those big looping shots. He didn't eat them like he did last time. I don't even remember seeing a cut in his face, which, if you had seen the first fight, it was a meat grinder. Lobov turned it on. He may have won this third or the fourth rounds, but Knight got to him. I don't think Knight would do well in boxing either. I don't. It doesn't. It doesn't make sense in any degree. To go into to win in bare knuckle and go to boxing to challenge a guy who's good. It reminds me of Beck Rawlings, who won the bare knuckle title. She won 3 bare knuckle fights and looked good. Like, hey, maybe Beck Rawlings has finally found her sport good. And then went to Bellator and fought and got knee barred easily by Arya Stark. So it wasn't the right call. If Lobov leaves bare knuckle, there's not much there for him. If Knight leaves bare knuckle, take a boxing match with a boxer? Yeah, that's good. Let's go let's go in Antonio Silva and go fight Rico Verhoeven in our first kickboxing match. That'll go over well, right? I don't know.
I was going to say, also, Paulie's not going to take that fight. So
No,
it's sort of like a non-starter
not.
anyway. Do you know what I mean?
No.
It's
just not. He's still just not a big enough name to draw him out. I mean, yeah, I'm constantly amazed that BKFC still finds a way to rope us into talking about them. It just never ceases to amaze me. Ben, I know I can see you look like you're ready to say something about this.
All I was going to say is that one of the reasons we're talking about this is that they put on a pretty good card after one of the worst UFC cards in recent memory. If this UFC card had been a banger, we would have talked about bare knuckle for like 60 seconds and been done with it.
Yeah. Very, very good point there. So now it is time to move on to the best name segment in all of podcast history, and that is I'm Not Surprised, Mr. Falcons. So, gentlemen, this is where you get to tell me something about the fights over the weekend, whether it be the pre-fight, the fights themselves, or post-fight coverage that surprised you the most. Ben, I will start with you. What is your I'm Not Surprised, Mr. Falcons moment of the week?
Well, I already kind of covered my main one, and that is the continued resurgence of Charles de Bronx Oliveira. I mean, we can and we did kind of pick at the level of competition that he's been facing and debated whether that's really worth a top 10 or top 15 ranking. But the fact remains that the Charles de Bronx of 5 or 8 years ago would not have beat those 6 guys.
Yeah.
He would have found a way to lose to 2 or 3 of them. So, I mean, that was my big surprise. Besides that, just it was interesting what a depressing graveyard the whole Sao Paulo card was. Just so many like dead bodies on this card. Hayden Barao fought on this. Well, Hayden Barao appeared on this card.
He was there.
Ariane Lipski. I mean, all due respect to Ben Askren, 2 years ago, Lipski was the most overranked fighter in the world by Sherdog.
Yep.
We had her ranked as high as number 3 in the world at flyweight. Well, at least with Askren, we were like arguing. It's like, is he in the 7 to 10 range? He's beat some real people. I mean, Lipski flat out hit a ceiling. And for them to find someone she could actually beat, they had to sign someone that had never fought out of the regionals and fought someone like 3 weeks ago. And even
was on
there,
like 24 hours notice.
Yeah, it was, and the fight was still a drag. So, good on Oliveira for not falling into the graveyard because, Trinaldo versus Green was super depressing to me because it's just the continued aging of Trinaldo, who still, he might be 55 years old. And then Green, who unretires, but always keeps up the, that didn't hurt, school striking defense that I can really stand to do without. And then, bummer of bummers, the thing we learned about Jacare this weekend is that moving up to 205 was not going to be the cure for his ills. I thought there was a chance that he might fare better in the long run than Rockhold or Weidman, even before any of the 3 of them had their first fights. But even though his physique looks the same as ever, he looks like he put on those 20 pounds in the form of cement shoes. He just looked so spent and listless in there. Just win or lose, I never had a moment where I thought the fight was going to turn on a dime and anything like was going to happen to spike any interest. So it leaves me unexcited to see his next fight, which is the first time I've ever said that about Jacare.
It's weird that you say that, Duffy. I don't know why I didn't chew on it more. That Weidman, Rockhold, and Jacare, 3 names that we thought would be an instant player in the division, and any one of them could be in for a title shot, are now 0-3 with 3 bummers of losses.
Well, in the case of Rockhold, I didn't think it was going to fix his problems. Like, it was going to reduce his size advantage. It wasn't going to fix his chin or his striking defense. It wasn't going to make him bring his hand back, after throwing a 1-2. So I thought at best Rockhold might win his debut fight and then be fast-tracked to a title shot against Jones just to make the fight.
Right.
But with Weidman, I was a little more interested. But even there, less so. And Jacare, I thought it might actually give him a little bit of a lease on life. But there's no life. He looked aged. He looked old to me.
He looked 39.
Yeah, well, he'd been slowing down, but there was something ageless about him. I mean, physically, the guy has looked the same for 10 years, but he is definitely slowed.
That's what happens, right? It usually happens overnight. One day there.
Yeah, you just look old all of a sudden. So, and I'm not sure how much of it was, for Blachowicz, who's been on such an impressive run of his own. You just wonder, like, was he having an off night to let this happen the way it did? I don't know. I mean, we just have to see these two gentlemen in action again to kind of figure out what all of this means. So, Oscar, please share with us what your "I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcons" moment is of the week.
Well, for me, I mentioned this a little bit before we started recording. I was surprised at the little amount of attention bare knuckle got. I mean, I mentioned that a little bit earlier when we was talking about it, but it was really, like, as far as outlets covering it, it was only me, and I really thought that first Artem Jason Knight fight and then the size of the Paulie fight would sort of give, if not the promotion, Artem a bit of momentum. So for me, going there and seeing that it was perhaps not as covered as I really anticipated was surprising for me.
Yeah. All right, Jay, what is your "I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcons" moment?
So we haven't spoken about it at all, and I'm going to go there. Let's go to China instead of any of those other places. Let's go to China for one of the events we haven't even thought about. The land of kickboxing with little gloves. One championship held an event called Age of Dragons, because of course it did. And it had some Muay Thai and kickboxing matches on display with 4-ounce gloves. So, as is sometimes expected, they're used to these 12-ounce big monstrosities or whatever they may be. Well, they weren't always used to that. So a couple things happened, and it's a 1-2 punch of shockers for me. First of all, Jarina Bosch. She's a Dutch phenom to those who are unfamiliar. She was taking her 50th Muay Thai and kickboxing combined bout. 46 wins, 0 losses, and 3 draws. Yes, there you go. So yes, she has never lost, and handled a German woman named Christina Brewer, dropped her in the second round. Okay, great. Just going to cruise her way. Easy 29-28. Nope. She lost a split decision. Somehow lost the split decision. The ref called the knockdown, which was a knockdown. Plain and simple. I've been watching fights for a couple weeks now. Knockdown. And so anyway, she lost her first fight to a veritable knot. And it happened in one championship. So hooray. And the second, Yod and Clyde Fairtex, Muay Thai pioneer, destroyer, the boxing computer. He's a name. You can think of a few names, Bulkow, et cetera. Yod and Clyde. Yod's one of the guys. So he fought a guy at a week's notice. Okay, no big deal. He's going to wreck this guy. Nope. He got blown out in the second round. He got destroyed. He got dropped a couple times and finished about, 30 seconds into round 2. Now, one said a few times in the broadcast he was undefeated in the last 10 years. Well, no, he actually lost his last fight to Sami Sana in May. Okay, fine, whatever. No, Yodson Clyde's lost plenty of times. He's like 270, 200 wins and 70 losses. So he's had his ups and downs, but he's had a lot of ups. But he hadn't been knocked out since 2005. So he's taken, 150 fights since then. Didn't get caught with a lucky blow, did nothing. No, he got blown out. He got smashed by a guy taking a fight on less than a week's notice. We had a piece on him when I was with Fightland in Vice a few years ago, and it was a slew of interviews talking about fighters that faced him and said he was the hardest guy to kick me, and oh my God, I broke my arm on the first kick, and I had to fight him with a busted arm. And John Wayne Parr is talking about, God, I hated fighting that guy. I had to fight him so many times, and I always rooted, and got smoked by a guy that wheeled out so he could get a highlight reel win and get smoked. So yes, that was very shocking to me.
Well, it sounds like something that the competition committee should look into. So
They should, if they're responsible.
Yeah, well, make sure to bring this to their attention as soon as possible.
Well, I'll text him.
So I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcon's moment of the week. We'll go from the far land of China to go to the far land of Tel Aviv, Israel, where Bellator had Bellator 234 take place.
Did they?
Kind of shocked to say I didn't know that this happened. I saw highlights of Liton Vassell knocking out Sergey Karatanov, which is a very surprising result. But I was just wondering when this fight happened and why we weren't able to watch it. Now, I have to say that we shouldn't be surprised that Bellator managed to screw up a broadcast internationally again. But here we go. Shout out to Paramount Network. Now, let's move on.
By a whole day. The fights happened on Thursday, by the way. Thank you.
It's they took tape delay to another level with this one. So if you like to watch,
they're doing it out of spite now because everyone.
It feels like just doubling down. Like, hey, this is what we do. So, the next big fight, we'll show it to you 4 days later. That's what's up. All right, fellas. So now we're going to move on to the speed bag. And this is where I get to flex my authority as the host of the show and time you mofos answering questions. So you each will have 10 seconds to answer these questions. Now, the interesting thing we're going to mix up this time, we got 2 more speed bag questions than normal. So we're going to go with 5 this time. And that means we got to have short and sweet answers for the sake of time. Now, I'm going to start this clock. And let's see, we'll start it off with Ben, who always comes through with a good opportunity for me to cut him off and flex my authority. Ben, don't let me down, my man. Do not let me down. You have 10 seconds to answer this question for me, sir. BKFC signed the Iranian Hulk. Now, what do they do with the 6'2", 390-pound man? And go.
I don't give a fuck. That dude is so disgusting. He is not fit to fight. Like, he looks like a case of congestive heart failure. It doesn't even look like muscle. It looks like he's just full of fluid. This open little valve that he's got and just let about 100 pounds of that synthol drain out of him.
That's how he cut weight now.
Oh, man. That was definitely over 10 seconds, but I was laughing too hard to cut you off. Ben, you got lucky. Oscar, the BKFC insider, if you can share with us what Mr. Philpin has planned for the Iranian Hulk, what do they do with this guy? 10 seconds. Let's go.
Well, I can't tell you what they have planned, but I know what they should have planned. Find the guy, the Mountain from Game of Thrones, pay the motherfucker whatever he wants, and have those 2 fight in the ring.
All right.
You're welcome.
Man.
You're welcome.
Great idea.
Checks in the mail there, buddy. All right, Jay. 10 seconds. What does BKFC do with the Iranian Hulk? And go.
I'll do you one better. Tim Sylvia called him out. Sylvia would tower over him. They're probably about the same weight and condition. Let's do this.
Oh, God, I can't believe this is something we're actually talking about.
Game
now,
on.
Okay, Oscar, you're going to start off this next question. So what was the more impressive knockout? Was it Jose Johnson's elbow at LFA 78, or was it Davey Gallen's rolling thunder kick on Ross Pearson at Pro Bellum? And go.
The question is answered in the question. It's called a rolling thunder kick, right? And see the way he hit the fucking ground? He folded like a lawn chair. That one was more impressive.
All right, I like it. Jay, you have 10 seconds. Which knockout impressed you the most? And go.
Rolling Thunder, baby. I mean, that elbow was a piece of work, but Hartford, the Whale, they only beat Vancouver once, maybe twice in a lifetime.
All right. Now, Ben, your turn. 10 seconds. Which one impressed you more?
Actually, give me the elbow. The kick was fantastic, but the elbow was on more of a live opponent, and it's something that people might actually watch tape on and see, how can I do this in a real fight?
Oh, look at you. Bringing the intelligence where everyone else brought the madness. Very impressive, Ben. And for your reward, Ben, you get to start off the next question. And that question is, Bellator and Rizin have scheduled 5 Bellator versus Rizin matches on their year-end cards. Should this be done more often by organizations? And go.
Yes, but not with their champions or anybody who's one fight away from a title shot.
Ooh. Short, sweet, to the point, informative. Again,
Yeah.
and
I answered the next question for you at the same time.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You're still gonna have to answer it again. So think of something snarky. All right. Okay, Jay, your turn. You have 10 seconds to answer. Should Bellator and Rizin be setting the blueprint for other organizations to follow? And go.
As long as there aren't lasting implications or titles part of it, I'd love it. Give me PFL versus ACB. Let's go all over. Let's go international.
All right. Now, Oscar, your turn.
They kind of do that already, actually, now that I think about it. PFL and ACB.
Same management.
For fans, yes. For the promotions themselves, no. Why would you risk making yourself look like the inferior product?
Look at that. Look at that. All these informative takes. All right. Now, Oscar, I guess you'll start off this one. Kyoji Horiguchi tore his ACL and vacated his Rizin belt, but not his Bellator title yet. Can we now say the cross-promotional champion angle has failed?
Yes. No, probably not, but I just wanted to be a smartass.
Mission accomplished. All right. And Ben, you've had a little time to think of your answer. You've already given it. Now, make me laugh.
Yeah, it's a failure, but it would have been a failure even if he hadn't injured himself. He was not going to be able to defend both titles regularly. Bad idea.
That wasn't funny. Jay.
Sorry.
Your turn.
Puppets, yes.
Your turn. Tell me, has the angle failed?
Yeah. I was expecting it. There it is.
Oh yeah.
This is the worst thing that could happen. I feel bad. They feel bad. We should all feel bad for it. They let the super champ get hurt, and he did. Just stop.
All right. Final question. And I'll go ahead and start with you, Ben, because I just want one more chance to cut you off. PFL featherweight finalist Daniel Pineda failed a drug test, and stepping in against Lance Palmer is Alex Gilpin, who lost to Palmer twice this year. Did PFL make the right call in this replacement?
I don't care. I don't care about the playoffs. I don't care about that final. I don't care about Lance Palmer. All I care about is I see Daniel Pineda a lot, and now I have to know that he uses dick pills every time I see him.
I was planning on mentioning the dick pills, but you beat me to it. Kudos to you, Ben. Oscar, your turn. You have 10 seconds. Did PFL make the right call in replacing Alex Gilpin with Daniel Pineda? Go.
Listen, if you're suffering and you're mad, you need to do what you need to do to get the sex life back on the rocks. And if that is dick pills, you take the dick pills. So that guy, he did what he had to do. He could be an American hero.
All right, Jay.
I hope that pussy was good because it cost him $1 million.
Oh, imagine. I'd be texting her so much abuse.
Oh,
you better
God.
come take care of this.
Talk about paying for sex. You know what I mean? Fucking hell. Goodness me.
Best nut ever. All right, Jay.
Imagine if you finished well early as well. You finished straight away. It's like, I just lost $1 million in 10 seconds.
Texting PFL. I think it's out of my system now.
And oh my God. All right. So Jay, you get the say on this question. Did the PFL make the right call?
Was that real? I thought that was a joke he said. I didn't know that was an actual thing that happened. But congrats to Lance Palmer. You're another millionaire, man. Good luck.
All right. I guess you really don't like Gilpin's chances at that 3 times the charm. All right. Now,
in 1 year, he's lost twice. That is a stat I am going to put at the top of my paper. Is that one? I don't think we've ever seen somebody fight against somebody else in a major promotion 3 times in a year, let alone lose to them 3 times in a year.
You will need, not including Travis Fulton, somewhere in that.
No,
in that
that's why I said major promotion, because he's beaten Bryant Robinson like 34 times.
Oh, ye of little faith. All right. So I guess now it's my turn to answer all these questions, but excuse me, I'm going to mix it up once again, because normally I give myself 30 seconds to answer 3 questions. This time I'm going to give myself 30 seconds to answer all 5 questions. Oh my God. Let's go and see if we can get this work. So number 1 question, BKFC signed the Iranian Hawk. So now what do they do with the 6'2", 390-pound monster? They just make sure that there's a heart specialist nearby. Second question, I believe that Jose Johnson's elbow was more impressive because Ross Pearson's chin died long time ago. Bellator and Rizin should be setting the blueprint for other promotions. However, answering number 4, you keep the champions out of it. It creates a bunch of chaos. And, of course, PFL had to go to Alex Gilpin. Who else was there? So there you go. There are 5 questions in less than 30 seconds. I actually stopped it at 27. Oh my God, I'm incredible. So, fellas.
Jeremy Kennedy lost to Pineda, the failed drug test guy. Why don't they just put him in?
Because I did not research before
No,
answering
I'm not
the
asking you. I'm asking just a question to the
because
masters.
none of us researched this before answering the question.
This was all spitfired off the top of our heads. So sue me. All right. Now, let's move on from this, gentlemen. The UFC is not on this weekend. Surprise, surprise, surprise. Take a breath, have a social life. But not so fast, because Bellator London and LFA 79 will be going down. What are some fights that stand out to you on those cards? Ben, I will start with you.
Not a whole lot stands out to me on the LFA card, which is kind of a bummer. This will be the second fight on their Fight Pass deal, and instead of springboarding them to new things, I'm not going to call it this early, but I would hate if this was the beginning of their regression to the mean and just another regional promotion. Because really, for a while now, they have occupied kind of a unique tier of their own in between the true regionals and then kind of like UFC and Bellator. And that's not been the case, at least this year. I'm most excited to see Colby Northcutt fight in one championship this weekend, honestly.
That is this weekend.
That is this weekend. They signed her and they put her on
a billions of others watching.
Trillions. Look in the chat. Trillions. I mean, in spite of the fact that she is, in some organizations, a former world, karate champ, they are putting her in the MMA portion of their card. So the co-main event is an 0-1 fighter.
Sure is, isn't it?
All right. So, Jay, what fights are you looking forward to out of the events that are non-UFC offered this upcoming weekend?
I looked. I did the homework, and I did the reading here. Bellator is doing it again. They're throwing a 20-fight card at us for the second time in 2 weeks. It might be 18 or 19. I don't know exactly the number. We'll see how it all falls through. What Duffy's gonna...
Well, it's like this card ate a Cage Warriors card. Like when you look at some of the names, they got Soren Bach on there, and
they used to do that. They used to try and co-promote, and then just said, "No, we're going to take you guys and make a card out of you." And Bama too. Bama was the other one. They kind of just said, "No, we're gonna here it is." At this rate, for the 8 of us that are watching these cards from start to finish, this is exhausting. There's not a single fight on this card that jumps off the page at me. And there's 19, 20, 18, however many fights officially on this card. I mean, Michael Page, okay, Derek Anderson, that's a bounce back fight, I guess, if you need another one, because you did what you did to Richard Keeley. Okay, whatever, fine, give him the slow build. Now he has to fight an Italian guy on short notice who gets knocked out all the time. So it's not looking good, and that's 20 fights. So good luck to me and 6 of us. LFA, I really do want to love LFA again because I've written Fight Facts pieces for 40 cards or something along those lines. Brandon Royval, Jared, the other Scoggins is going to be, a decent fit flyweight scrap. Okay, I could see maybe the winner ending up in the Contender Series next year, but that's about it. The co-main event is a Georgian fighter. Now, I don't want to mess up his name because I've been trying to practice it, but I don't want to. Lazishvili is undefeated. According to the records of some outlets, he's 11-0. Now, on SureDog.com Fight Finder, he's 0-0. We have not verified a single fight in his record yet. Most of them took place in Georgia. Results are a little spottier. Maybe there wasn't verification. Maybe Tapology was more okay with it. Whatever the facts may be, the fights that he supposedly had won, 11 of them, are meh. And in the meantime, all those 11 guys that he beat, None of those 11 guys had ever fought before. So, you know, I don't know. I can't see it. It blows my mind how LFA hit the ground running, big quotes, last week with a card that didn't really have anything on paper. Main event delivered. Giannis Estrada was a great fight, but it was a card. Duffy is spot on. This could be it's another event on Friday night on Fight Pack. Oh, look at WXC is on too. Oh, hooray, AFC, Titan FC, CFFC, Cage Warriors, CES. You can go down the list of all the promotions on Fight Pass that we forgot about.
I'll just watch Bushido 9 again.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think Deontay Wilder's fighting again this weekend against Luis Ortiz again, because that's the rematch they should be making for Deontay Wilder right now. Now, okay, Ortiz, if I remember correctly, had Wilder hurt badly in the mid-late rounds, and won a couple. I don't remember being as close as apparently the judges scored it, but Wilder finished him later on. I don't want to rip the boxing world more than I always do, but I hate seeing a year burned away from a fighter because they're taking fights that they probably don't need to take because, well, they're going to take a fight because they want to, another win. So there's a boxing match on, and it'll end, and we'll go, okay, now what? Now where's the real fight? So before I digress, Royval Scoggins can be a good fight this weekend.
All right. Oscar, what fights are you looking forward to this weekend?
Yeah, I was just looking at my phone. I've been on 87 planes this year. I've flown 153,000 miles. So the idea of having basically getting away with an MMA free weekend, if one's given to me, is not the worst thing in the world. So I think I'm going to go watch Deontay Wilder assault a 103-year-old man and then say something stupid afterwards. That's what I'm going to do.
Ortiz is so old.
Yeah, he actually was in college when Yoel Romero was born. So that's the rumor. But anyway,
I heard he was a bit of a father figure to Jack Johnson actually.
Yeah, man, I'm actually very happy to see that there is a UFC free weekend. Because like my personal life has just been so chaotic. Just moved, baby on the way. I am losing my mind. So I might just go ahead and take this time to just not think about people hitting each other for money. But if you had to, which actually I kind of do this for money, so I guess I have to. Wilder Ortiz is probably the highest on my radar. That seems like a good fight. The first one was fantastic. Now, if we're going MMA, I'll say that MVP is fighting, which is always exciting, and he's actually fighting a guy who's fought more than twice. So that is pretty amazing in and of itself. But Fabian Edwards versus Mike Shipman, the co-main event of Bellator London, might actually deliver. So I'm not too mad at that fight either. So that is that. Now, fellas, I think it is time to move on from that. And now let's just cover a little bit of our social lives. So we just talked about a UFC free weekend. We did talk about some fights, but what are you going to do with this extra time now that Dana White and crew are taking a weekend off?
Prolific drug taking, drinking on the strip of Las Vegas, and ending up in a prostitute's bedroom. Not really. That's a lot.
Tuesday night then, right?
Yeah, it's just
I'm going to sleep. I'm going to go to bed and sleep for 3 days.
All right. So Ben, what are you going to do with your extra time?
Watch Bellator.
Oh, no. Christmas is coming up. Why would you do that to yourself?
Jay,
they put on a great product.
Jay, I'm just picturing you in front of a chalkboard with a bunch of random numbers and calculations. Is that what your weekend's going to look like?
Just making numbers up so I can write Fight Pack pieces about nothing. No, I have 3 to cover this weekend because the one show I get to write about because there's more fights than kickboxing fights. So I'm off play-by-play duties, which is nice because it's been 12 straight weeks. It's been 12 straight weeks of UFC cards. It's been since August. And, these are time-consuming events for all of us to cover. If everything works out, I'm going to try and go out of town for a few days. I'm going to breathe in some frigid air, catch a cold, come back on Sunday, write about LFA, Bellator, and 1, and, Have a nice weekend.
Yeah. So I think I will be rearranging the living room. Perhaps I'll be helping install a washer and dryer, maybe even a stove. You never know the excitement going down
crazy up in here
in the Walker household.
And
this is after Lamaze class on Thursday, so that's what's up. All right, fellas. Now we're going to go to the final segment of today's edition of Unleashed, and that is Buried Treasure. So this is a time where you get to share a story that should be getting more coverage or just flown under the radar for whatever reason. Oscar, I will start with you. What is your Buried Treasure this week?
I spoke to Anthony Rumble Johnson in Biloxi, Mississippi, cultural hub of the South. And he is not in the USADA pool yet, but he has dropped 30 pounds. He said he's feeling much better. He seems much happier than when I saw him last time. He's noticeably trimmer. He says he's still working things out with the UFC, but he doesn't foresee any problems, and he believes he shall be returning in June or July at heavyweight. The reason why I think that story should get more coverage is because I want to see him punching people as a heavyweight.
All right.
As long as it's consenting men he's punching.
Oh, you said it before I could.
Why don't we have him fight Greg Hardy?
I don't think they'd give him to Greg, would they?
I don't.
If Greg had won that last fight.
Who do you root for?
Yes.
Just be a confusion.
You root for Meteor.
You root for I was going to say like a Rob Everson, Gray Maynard kind of situation, personally, but
it's kind of like when Catwoman fights the Joker as an anti-hero. All right, Ben. What's your buried treasure for the week?
Very quietly this past week, a scheduled bout between Carlos Condit and Mickey Gall was scratched when Condit revealed that he had a detached retina. Anything eye-related is, short of brain-related, one of the quickest ways to irrevocable retirement. I don't know whether I want that to happen or not. The thing that kind of struck me about it is how quietly it happened. Because I remember a time when Carlos Condit fights were appointment watching in a way that has been true of very, very few other fighters in the history of the sport. I mean, the way we're kind of talking about Masvidal and Diaz over the last couple of months, that was Carlos Condit at one point. He never had that personality. He's always been a very buttoned down and well-articulated individual on the mic. But as far as just a savage in the cage, he was it. But that's so long ago. I realize now. I mean, he's on a 5-fight losing streak dating back to like 2016. But his real heyday, when he was at the peak of his powers, like definitely one of the 10 best welterweights in the sport, if not one of the 5 best, right when he got his title shot at Georges St. Pierre. I mean, that was 2012. In terms of MMA eras, that's a full era ago. That's before the Conor and Ronda era. I mean, it's post Brock, it's post UFC 100, but there's an entire generation of fans who've never really seen Carlos Condit do Carlos Condit things. And now it seems they may never. So if this is it, there'll be much more to say about him, but that's what should have gotten more news this week, is that Carlos Condit may quietly have had his last fight canceled.
And one of my saddest moments as an MMA media member was sitting cage side to see Michael Chiesa defeat Carlos Condit. Ooh. It's just like, oh man, it's just seeing a legend go down. Even if it is to someone like Chiesa, who is a very, very legit fighter and deserves all the respect in the world. But Jay, share with us your buried treasure this week.
All right, boys, buckle up. So this happened. This was discussed today. That's when I learned of it. So KSW former lightweight title challenger Marcin Zrocek decided he was tired of an internet troll giving him crap. So he found out about the guy and doxed him. He found his personal information and posted on his social media that he plans to visit the internet troll's wife's salon tomorrow to spend some quality time with her. Real happening. So it's like some goof meme page that makes fun of fighters and drops the N-word and posts really like unpleasant troll on the internet, like racist memes, and calls fighters fat and photoshops their wives with things like mean-spirited stuff. Like, woo, not a person you want to mess with. And so, Marcin is tired of it. He's sick of it. So yeah, he did this digging, and so he found this wife's. It's a salon. I believe they do the whole treatment, makeup, or they manicures. He says he's going to, quote, get to know his wife over a manicure. He says that since the troll was talking trash about his fiance, he, quote, he need to taste his own medicine. So I don't know what this means, and I hope that nothing terrible happens, but you just messed with the wrong guy, internet troll. Whoa. It just got real.
Well, you know amazing. What? I love that story. You know what?
Fighters are applauding. If all the KSW fighters that found out about it, that they've been ripped on tour, like, please, you should have called me. I would have come too.
Yeah. Have you ever seen a KSW? I wouldn't say that to a random person in the crowd.
No.
I wouldn't say that to the janitor at a KSW.
I'm not even going to share my buried treasure because that's all it. That's it.
Jay
good
just
Lord,
offered up one that might feature an actual burial this time next week. How are you going to top that?
Yeah, there's nothing. Yeah, that's it. Like
that's pretty dope. That's awesome.
I wish that happened more often. The nonsense that people feel like they can just get away with saying because they're behind the screen is totally nuts. So, everybody go ahead, catch them hands if you want to. Shit. Catch them hands, please come get the work. The work is there. Go, just go get it. Like, you think about some of the internet trolls that got served up by fighters in the past. I believe there was a self-proclaimed ninja that Dominic Cruz floored. There was there was some hapless asshole that got cracked by Josh Neer.
We were just talking about Deontay Wilder. I mean, we've never had a Charlie Z moment on this show.
Didn't Mark Hunt go to someone's house because they insulted him on Call of Duty and it was a 10-year-old?
I think so. I swear I remember Uriah Faber choking somebody out too. Like, a fan was like, I can take you, and they're like, and then he did, and it didn't. It didn't work. Somebody else actually fought a fan. It wasn't Tanya Venture.
I just looked it up.
LaRosa?
Yeah, I think it was Sparta fan. But that was a guy, I think.
Yeah, and she ruined him.
Yeah, and then we had what's it, Tara De La Rosa? Didn't she just? She choked out the somebody at an anti-Trump protester or something. But the craziest thing about that story is not that she choked out somebody who looked like they had mental issues, whether political leanings aside, looked like somebody who didn't know what was going on upstairs in their own head, and obviously couldn't fight. But that she was hanging out with the Proud Boys, the white supremacist jackasses. So that seems to be more the biggest story to me. Maybe that'd be my buried treasure, because shit, that seemed to be the part that everybody seemed to forget. Anyway, Proud Boys suck a dick, but we'll leave that there. I think that's a fair way to conclude this show. So I'd like to thank Oscar for joining the panel this week. Oscar, let the good folks know out there where they can find you on social media.
Well, my wife's working at the salon, so you can go find her there.
I'll make an appointment on Tuesday.
Yeah, let her know. I'm at Oscar S. Willis on everything, basically. And then, obviously, my outlet is Mac Life Official. And we do some good stuff.
All right.
So they are the best MMA media outlet named after a fighter.
Okay.
Nice.
A ringing endorsement.
There you go. So, I think we're going to make that the tagline as you log in.
Take that, bjpen.com.
Yeah, I like those guys. Chris Taylor's done a good job over there trying to.
I'm waiting for StefanBonner.net to kill things. All right, Ben, where can everyone find you?
You can find me on social media at Benjamin Duffy. You can find me All Around Sherdog. I am senior editor there, and you can find DeSantis and Duffy on the revitalized and relaunched Sherdog Radio Network. In fact, we're live tomorrow. Well, it'll be today when this goes up, Tuesday afternoon, 2 p.m. Pacific time, 5 p.m. Eastern time. In the words of a good friend, come get this work.
Oh, but that friend sounds very handsome. Jay, where can everyone find you?
So if luck holds out, you can find me right here.
Ah, yes.
Yeah,
Graphics.
I'm giving it a moment to so they can get the spelling right. Sherdog.com. I'm pretty much everywhere you need me to be, and it's gonna be nice to have a weekend off.
All right.
You with that one.
Beautiful, beautiful stuff there. So, of course, I'm Ant Walker. You are watching the Walkout Network. So you can obviously find me there. And if you can find me there, you're watching now. So shit, I ain't got to tell you that. But you can find me on Twitter at @AntWalkerMMA. Also my Instagram name. I don't post much, but follow me anyway, just in case I do.
Come get these baby pictures.
Yeah, baby pictures will be
baby
around
pictures are coming.
pretty soon. Yeah. Did a maternity shoot actually. So that's
I was embarrassed.
Yeah,
was she holding your belly?
ashamed of
Because that's
yourself.
I held my wife's belly.
No, other way around.
Oh, smart ass! I'm losing my belly. I'm back in the gym. You about to get this work, Jay? So, on that note, you know what you got to do. You got to stay beautiful. You got to stay positive, and most of all, you got to stay sexy. I will see you when I see you. Peace.